Three, two, one. Ladies and gentlemen, it is good to be back here with Ben and Nate's questions that we ask people on the internet. I am one half of your host, Nate Fay. I'm a massage therapist here in Connecticut. I'm an osteopath. And when I'm not seeing a lot of people in my practice, helping them to live a pain-free life, I'm on the road teaching for Dalton Myoskeletal.
My name is Ben Stone. I am your other host, doing massage for the last 20 years out of the Midwest, Nebraska specifically. I like asking people questions on the internet with my friend Nate, and we've been doing this for probably a year and a half, 2 years now. And we're looking at episode 36, I think. How did that happen?
It's a long way to the top if you want to podcast and roll, man.
That's right. Give people a quick little rundown of how this podcast works, Nate.
I'm going to give you a rundown, and I'm going to give you a couple quick little statistics here, okay?
Ooh, cool.
So here's the rundown. We ask a question on the internet, specifically on our Facebook page, Ben and Nate's questions that we ask people on the internet. And it's about the massage industry. And they could be a simple question, like, what's your favorite continuing education class? It could be more of an in-depth question, like, how would you explain pain to your clients, and everything in between. And then what Ben and I do is we take your answers and we have in-depth, detailed discussions around them. So you ready for those statistics, Ben?
Hit me with them. What do you got?
All right. Our two most listened to podcasts. I just dug this up to talk about today. So our two podcasts that had the most listens and the most downloads were the pros and cons to being a male in this industry. And by the way, it was tied first place to one of our recent conversation where we talked about the benefits, the pros and cons of having memberships in your massage facility. Those were our two most listened to podcasts and had the most amount of downloads.
That is very interesting. So I want to know, here's some more questions that I come up with. I want to know, what's the ratio of male to female in the industry of massage? Do you have an idea?
I personally do not. I have not. I don't know.
Yeah. What would be your guess? I'll tell you right now, I don't know the answer.
Oh, you don't know? So, well,
No.
when I was an early therapist, and I think it was just an anecdotal, like, made up statistic, but I often heard 80% female. That's what I often heard.
Yeah, I would put it somewhere between, 75 and 85%.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
What if I'm the only one anyone knows those? I'll have to ask our good friend Eric Brown, who is the statistic master. I will ask him.
He's a good guy. I like him.
He's a good guy. So, Ben, it's been a minute. I've been on the road for the last few weeks once again, and I'm just coming off of a 13-day work week between my practice and traveling. I was up in the North Country, up in the woods of Maine, because, like George Carlin once said, if they have a zip code, I'll be there. And I went all the way up to a place called Sunday River, New Rye, Maine, which is apparently it's a famous ski resort. As a non-skier, that didn't appeal to me, but it was a beautiful area in the mountains. And outside of having a great class, I saw a moose.
Like Bullwinkle?
Like Bullwinkle.
Nice. You know the Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoon?
Of
Yeah,
course
we're dating ourselves a little bit by talking about that, but why not?
That's right. And so that was a highlight. And now I am on an official break from teaching my own personal seminars. However, we will be in 2 months exactly in Oklahoma City, and we will be paying respects and tributes and memorials to the late, great Eric Dalton.
Yeah, that's going to be a good time. I think you and a couple of other educators are going to be there sharing what you know and sharing your versions of the Eric Dalton techniques, myoskeletal alignment work.
Yeah, we're going to pull together the instructors that have been out there, myself, Tammy McHugh, Scott Doss. Scott's a dear friend of mine. I won't attempt to say his whole name. and as the kids call him, Scott Oglesby Foglesby, but that's not really his name. And then, of course, Kathleen Benante from Texas, Jane Dietert from the Midwest out in Wisconsin, and hey, if I didn't mention your name, it's only because I'm halfway through this coffee right now, and I've worked 13 days in a row. But his Eric's daughter Adrian will be emceeing this event and telling some great stories and tributes about her dad. And then we will also have some other special guests, like our good friend Charlie Peebles from Indiana State University, who headed up the first MAP program at the university. And then, of course, we'll have some other special guests as well.
Yeah, Charlie's a great guy. At one of the Eric Dalton events a couple years ago, I pulled out my camera and I just started talking to people. And he was one of the guys that I got to talk to. I didn't really know him that well at the time, but he's fantastic, dude.
And by the way, now that my brain is starting to wake up, how could I forget Clinton Merrifield? And Clinton's our European instructor, so Clinton's coming all the way from Germany to be with us as well.
I'll be darned, Germany.
Yeah, Germany.
Do you know
Matt and German.
I have a minor in German, the language.
Do you?
Don't ask me to speak it, but I at one point I could speak it fairly okay.
I won't. I won't do it.
Yeah.
I have a German couple that comes and sees me. True story. I have a German couple that comes and sees me every other week, and they drive about an hour to see me. They're this sweet couple, and they literally are so loyal to me. They come and see me every other week. And while one of them seeing me, the other one will go out and shop because where I live, there's a lot of, all the Costco's and supermarkets. They live in the middle of nowhere. So it's sort of a novelty for them to come this way and get all their shopping done. But in passing, they'll have about a 2-minute conversation in German.
Nice.
And I always stand there and I look at them and I just say, I'm just listening for my name. That's all I'm listening for.
Probably sounds like they're yelling at each other, but
it actually does.
Yeah.
It really does. It's not a gentle language. I love hearing it, but it's definitely not a gentle language.
Yeah.
So, Ben, what's been going on in your world? Tell me a couple things.
Oh man, it's been, same thing, just kind of doing the massage gig. We had a marathon in our town, the Lincoln Marathon, and we had a good time. I was in charge of teaching massage therapists how to work on post-event runners, which was cool. We had about a little over an hour to kind of take care of that, and we had a good time. We had I'm trying to remember 30, 40 people, somewhere around there maybe. And we worked on, a couple, 200-300 runners after the race. So it was a good time. We had a good time.
This was all, you didn't do any it was all post-event work.
All post-event work. Yep. We only had a couple of cramps, not very many issues this year. So it was good. It's a good time.
Good. And Ben, not to put you on the spot here, but what are some of the protocols these days in post-sports event massage? Like what were you teaching?
I keep it pretty simple because there's a lot of people who have been to the event before, some veteran massage therapists, and I like to just say, hey, our main goal is to calm the nervous system and to start the recovery process. And we do that with maybe some compressions, some stretching, and some light effleurage. That's that's pretty much it. If you were there, that's what I said, but it took me an hour to say that.
That's okay. Well, it's because you and I like to say a lot of things. I do the same thing in class. I'm like, I'm going to say a lot of things, but the technique's going to be, pretty easy.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. Calm them down. That's what I always say, man. The first session, even in our practice, that first session, they come in with low back pain. The goal is just to get them calmed down.
Yeah, exactly.
That pain level down.
So last time we talked, I think I asked you a knock-knock joke.
You did ask me a knock-knock joke.
And I had to remind you how knock-knock jokes work.
You did.
So I'm gonna give you a chance to redeem yourself with a new knock-knock joke.
I'm ready.
All right. All right, here we go. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
I'm a pileup.
I'm a pileup who?
Oh, Nate, it's okay. You don't have to be so hard on yourself.
That's right.
I had to. I had to stick with that theme that we went with the knocked out joke last time. But here's the joke I wanted to really go with
Okay.
because I know you'll like this. How many bass players does it take to change a light bulb?
Ooh, how many bass players does it take to change a light bulb? How many?
None. The keyboard player can do it with his left hand.
Oh man, that's right. That's right.
Thought you might like that one. And that kind of gets us into the theme for today. And the theme that we asked people a little while back on Ben and Nate's questions, we asked people on the internet Facebook page was, if massage therapy had a soundtrack, what song would be your go-to?
Hmm. That's a fun one. So what you're referring to, just so I'm clear, is we're not talking about the type of music that you play in your room, or are you?
I don't know. I think this is open to interpretation.
Definitely open to interpretation. Okay, well, that was my first thought. My first thought was, everybody's got a soundtrack, everybody's got a song going through life, right? You have your song that you probably have a go-to where the lyrics touch you and hit you in a certain way.
Yeah.
But then in the massage room, it makes me think, right? Music's always a part of our sessions, right? Plays a huge role in our sessions.
Yeah.
And I remember back in the day, you felt like you had to play pretty ambient music, right? As the great Brian Eno once composed music for airports. And
Ah.
that ethereal music that you might hear in the background as you're walking along. So that certainly changed a lot for me over the years. So what say you, Ben, to help get us started here?
Oh, how would I interpret the question? Is that what you're asking?
Sure.
Yeah, I do. I think a lot about the music that happens. And to be honest, I have the same set of, I think I have 7 or 8 CDs handpicked that I've been using for the last probably 12 years. They have not changed. I know the words to the songs that don't have words. That's how much I've listened to them.
I love that you said CDs, by the way, too.
Yeah, I put them all onto an iPod. So they originally were in CD format, and now I have an iPod Touch Generation 5, which is, I think that's pretty. They don't make iPods anymore, I don't think.
I
I don't know.
I don't think they do either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so again, I'm old. I like old
We're old,
technology.
Ben. We are old, Ben, that's for sure. What are these 12 CDs? What type of music do you play?
Ah, like I said, I handpicked all of these. I have an idea that they're pretty much relaxation type music.
Hmm.
Um, but I pick tracks that don't have words on purpose. And I've played around with all kinds of music, but I feel like words get in the way. They take you out of the ability for your body to um, I don't know, be present.
Sure.
And you start listening to the words, and then now you're thinking about the words. So I've done some experiments, and I've done, like, have you heard like the elevator versions of, say, Metallica and stuff like that? I
Yeah,
had a
I
whole
have.
playlist on Pandora of that.
Awesome. Yeah, I've
And
heard a lot
I
of
even
those.
found myself, I'm singing along in my head, even though there's no words to this elevator,
Right.
version. I was like, no, I need to be aware. I need to be present with what I'm doing. So it was too distracting, I think. So the music I play is no words. That's a
Awesome. Okay.
long roundabout way to say music without words. How about you? What's your music setup? How do you go about it?
Well, currently, and I would probably say the last probably 6 or 7 years, So it's been a while now. I use Pandora, and I've probably got about six stations that I revolve around. I've tried a lot. I've tried a lot of different ones. And you know, these days, and I get stuck on one for a while. The interesting thing to me about Pandora is that it does evolve over time, so I always hear new songs every day. So if I'm in my treatment room for 10 hours a day, I'm never hearing the same song twice. I'll say that. Certainly the next day, I'm hearing some of those same songs, but then something new might come on that I'm like, oh, cool. Like in my head, I'm working away and I'm like, oh, I've never heard this one before. And I hear you. I'm gonna jump back to the music with vocals in a minute. But yeah, everything that I listen to in my practice, right, is right, has lyrics, has vocals to it. So these days, I'm hooked on the John Mayer station on Pandora, which is kind of because John Mayer has a big blues background, has kind of evolved into sort of a blues slash folk slash singer songwriter channel over like the last like several months. And the songs can sort of be relaxing. Some of them can be a little up tempo blues and have a little bit of an edge to them. And people always say to me, man, if anything, I come here for the music. I hear that all the time. People will joke with me. They say, I don't come to see you. I come to listen to the music while I'm here. And I take that as a compliment. However, it's interesting that you brought up the lyrics getting in the way of things because recently I never thought about that before. Well, that's not true. Once in a while, a song will come on that's never been played before, and all of a sudden I tune into the lyrics because maybe they're a little not amazing for the therapy room, right? Of
Yeah.
course, we're talking about the theme of music in a soundtrack. John Mayer has a song, Your Body is a Wonderland.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Your Body is a Wonderland comes on, and I'm like, you can't help but to laugh, right? Because it is kind of funny. But
That,
at the
yeah.
same time, I'm like, excuse me 1 minute, and I do the thumbs down thing so that song never gets played again. And I've had some interesting because it kind of crosses like over like folk music, country music, blues music, the station. And some of these country songs can get a little political. And so I've had all of a sudden, the guys in the background singing about maybe stuff that's a little controversial. So I do the thumbs down thing quickly. So luckily I've weeded some of that stuff out. But recently, just a couple weeks ago, I work on this guy. And by the way, a lot of my clients, there's a lot of conversation happening in my sessions. There's conversations because clients like to know what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. So people are always asking me, and I can appreciate that they're in tune to the work that's happening. But then there's always the conversation of, hey, how's your day? How's the kids? That kind of stuff that happens. And then there's moments of quiet. And I have this one guy, he doesn't want to talk. And he made that abundantly clear in the beginning. And I do all the Nate Faye stuff that I normally do. But he told me in the beginning, I don't want to talk. So I got the music going and he never says a word. It's like so, but after the session, he gets up and he's always like, I feel so good. That was great. And the whole time, I think he hates me. Right. So anyway, music's going and I'm actually tuned out of the music right at this point. I'm tuned into him. And all of a sudden, in this quiet voice, and he goes, are you listening to the lyrics of this song? And I said, no. I said, I'm actually not listening to it at all. I was kind of tuned into what I was doing in here. And he starts going, get me to your bedroom, tie you up, not going to let you leave, going to do you like Adam and Eve. And it was a blues tune too, right? So it's a blues song. And I was like, oh, God, right? And so now I'm like, I gotta wait for this song to come back on so I can like thumbs down. So now it's like weeks later. It's literally been, oddly enough, we're recording this. It's yesterday. And I'm in my room, and all of a sudden I'm again tuned out of the music, and all of a sudden my ear picks up, gonna get you to the bedroom, not gonna let you leave, gonna tie you up, and it's gonna be like Adam and Eve and eat your apple. And I was like, no. Slow motion, like, Tom
No.
Cruise, no, diving to my, but I did try the no lyric songs that were like covers or maybe acoustic guitar interpretations of like popular songs. So all of a sudden there's like an acoustic guitar cover of like you said, like Metallica or Muse or so, a lot of the music that I like to listen to. So anyway,
Yeah. Wow. That's kind of, it can be a little embarrassing, right? And that's kind of another reason why I keep I hand pick my CDs,
mm.
um, and then I don't have to, if you use the free version of Pandora, you've got the ads that come in, and that's kind of, I'm like, well, if you're gonna use Pandora, you should at least pay for the subscription.
Oh yeah, I totally do, and and I always know that once a year when my subscription runs out, because all of a sudden I'll be working on someone and a McDonald's commercial comes on,
Yeah.
right? And but luckily my clients know me well enough that at this point, we can have a good laugh about it. So, one of our good friends and our listeners, shout out to Barb McKenney, loyal fan of the show.
Yay, Barb.
Yeah, I love she posts about what she plays on her in her treatment room, and she's like, "Oh yeah, today I played, Metallica and Slipknot and stuff like that." And I always think that's kind of cool too. Do you ask people like what they want to listen to? Do you ever pose that question?
Oh, that's interesting. No, I used to have people that I haven't had anyone recently, but they would ask, "Hey, can I play my music?" Because I've got a Bluetooth speaker, and so we just pair their phone.
And are you cool with that?
Yeah, I'm cool. I'm cool if someone wants to listen to Metallica. I'm cool with that. I do
Yeah.
notice that, my awareness and my ability to focus kind of wavers. But it's not like I'm doing brain surgery or something like that. So I
Right.
can I can deal with it. And sometimes it's kind of fun to hear new stuff. And I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah. I got a couple people. I got a guy that comes in and he likes me to pick AC/DC radio on Pandora, so it plays a lot of AC/DC, Motley Crue, Metallica. And I have another woman that likes like some of the modern country kind of stuff, so I'll put on all the guys that are singing about buying boats and going to Mexico, those type of songs. And
yeah,
like you said, it's kind of fun. It changes the vibe a little bit, but it's still pretty fun. But you just said something that I tuned into, and you said, I'm not a brain surgeon here, and I have some different types of doctors and surgeons that come and see me, and I'm like, hey, tell me the truth. Like, what do you listen to when you're performing surgery, right?
yeah,
And oh, well, one guy was like, man, he goes, I love death metal. He goes, and I couldn't believe it. And he goes, I love death metal. And I'm like, really? And he goes, yeah. And he starts naming like, the bands whose logos you can't even tell what the band is,
yeah.
right? Like, because it all looks like crazy, like squiggly lines. Yeah. So he's like, yeah, he goes like Cannibal Corpse, Carcass, Obituary. And I'm like, really? And he goes, yeah. He goes, that gets me through my surgery. And I'm like, that's amazing, right? That's like so amazing.
I had no idea that surgeons were allowed to listen to music while they're
Oh
working.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
why not?
Yeah, why not? I mean, they're in there and hey, it's their show. And I have one guy like he likes rock, so he's like I love listening to classic rock while I'm doing my thing. And I'm like, that's amazing. Like, you've got somebody's leg wide open and you're drilling away and
Yeah.
this, war ensemble from Slayer comes on or something like that.
Wow.
So yeah, there's a lot. And I'm like, tell me the truth. I'm like, do you guys like make fun of people while they're like out cold on the surgical table? This is off topic, by the way. And they're like, oh, totally. We have a blast. So, these people that have IQs of, right, and are so well studied, they're just like the rest of us.
They're We're just all the same. We're all people.
We're all people at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
Well, let me ask you this question. What type of music doesn't get allowed to be played in your treatment room?
So,
Besides the stuff that's, racy lyrics and inappropriate lyrics, that kind of stuff. But what type of
yeah,
music you don't you allow
right.
or
And
like?
yeah, and at the end of the day, despite the type of music that I typically play in my clinic, I do like I just said I want to reiterate that I do make sure that songs like that get omitted because at the end of the day, you don't want anyone to be uncomfortable, right? Because you never know those people that leave your table. You never know, you know, what their real thoughts and beliefs are. So you don't want to make anyone mad.
Yeah.
So anyway, interestingly enough though, Ben, so early on in my career, right, and I'm playing all the ambient stuff. And having been a musician and studying classical music and a lot of what they considered contemporary classical music, which is some pretty far out there stuff. And but I still had an ear and still had a deep knowledge of some of these neoclassical composers that were writing this sort of ethereal stuff in modern times. So I would play, and I mentioned off recording today a guy by the name of Brian Eno. And Brian's an interesting guy because I mean he's produced and written for everybody from Paul Simon to done his own thing. And Brian, composed a bunch of ambient work pieces called Music for Airports. And it was just this very like ethereal background music, very calming, very soothing. And I used to play a lot of Brian Eno stuff in my practice. And interestingly enough, from a relaxation vibe standpoint, man, it puts you in the zone. You were like,
Yeah.
okay, I am in this, those all those brain waves we talk about were just like, everything was slowing way down. And about 8 years into my career and having listened to music for airports about 10,000 times at that point, I was like, I gotta like do something here. So then I went to the like acoustic guitar type stuff, like we talked about. And that was cool for a while until somebody said to me, it just sounds like someone's tuning their guitar while you're working on me. Because that's how their ears interpreted it. My ear as a musician, I'm hearing, genius and virtuosity, and their ear is hearing somebody just like plucking and tuning.
Yeah. Twang, twang.
Yeah, and I'm the type of guy that if it doesn't matter if 1,000 people like it, if one person says something like that, it's over for me. It's absolutely over for me. My best friend who's a singer said it best. If there's 400 people in the crowd rocking out and dancing to a tune, and one person's up there with their arms folded, shaking their head because you're playing Stacy's Mom, he's like, I didn't play Stacy's Mom for 10 years because of that one person, right? So anyway, so then I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna like kind of dive into like acoustic coffee house music with lyrics. And I started finding guys like Amos Lee and Andrew Duhan and some of these like folky singer-songwriters and started playing that. And then all of a sudden people were like, man, I love coming here for the music. I love the music you play. And then the other biggest piece of feedback I heard was, I love coming here because you don't play what sounds like whale noises. And that was a lot of people saying that to me, not just one. Like everyone was like, oh man, whenever I go get a massage, they play whale noises and it drives me nuts. And so I love coming here. And I was like, cool. And I've gotten a little bolder over the years. And now I kind of play like more up tempo, sort of like rock, blues, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think people love it. Nobody's ever said to me, you know, hey man, this is kind of rattling my head a little bit.
Well, it's got to be something you like. If you don't like it, like that's your office. You're in it all day. You got to like it.
Well, Yeah, and that's just it too, Ben, because at the end of the day, and half the reason I changed over like 10 years ago was because I'm like, man, I'm going to be doing this for a long time. And I was just coming out of my sessions feeling stoned.
Mm.
And that's how it was, you know?
Well, I think in a lot of places, Enya is banned.
Right. I think it probably is. Man,
And
but
if,
Enya's okay with that because probably with all her streams and CD buys from the manual therapy community, she's probably doing all right.
yeah. And if I go to get a massage and I hear Enya, I haven't been to a place like that in a long time, but I don't know. I might have to get up and leave. I might have to say I can't do Enya, or
Yeah.
maybe just ask him to change it. I guess that would be easier.
A few years ago at one of our Oklahoma City seminars, this was a memorable one, and Eric did a whole discussion on brain waves. And I thought, I wonder what that would be like to play those tonalities in my treatment room, right? And so like one day I started off my day, my 9 a.m. session. If you go on like Apple Music or Spotify, you can actually play, and it's like the tonalities of those that will cycle your brain waves down to calm you down, right? And I put one of these on and it was the most torturous 45 minutes of my life. I was like, I couldn't get that session out of there fast enough.
Yeah, that's interesting because I wanted to bring up some of this stuff. There is music. So a year or two ago, I was introduced to binaural music, I think is what it's called. And it's a certain frequency. It is, I don't know enough about it and I don't want to make too much fun, but this is our podcast. We can have as much fun as we want, right?
That's right.
It's like frequencies of the universe. And there's like a universal frequency. And so
Yeah.
they put together this list of music that this composer put together this music, and it will, depending on, how he puts it together. And I have this, and it will say, this song is for low back pain.
Mhm.
This song is for headaches. This song
Yeah.
is for some conditions. So there's these frequencies, and supposedly it's supposed to help you. And there's even the speaker itself has a way to attach to your table, and so the vibration of the speaker will vibrate the table and somehow do some sort of miracle work and get rid of your headaches, get rid of your low back pain, get rid of your anxiety, depression, all that stuff. Have you heard of this stuff?
I've heard about it a little bit, and I actually just saw one of the big table manufacturers now has that table that you were basically just describing. I forget who it was, and I was like, man, that's so interesting because it's back to the whole. It sounds good on paper, and so the person that you're working on laying there is like losing their mind because they can't stand the sounds and the tones of it.
Yeah, I'll tell you. So I've had this speaker for 2 years or so. Um, and I was doing some cleaning up in my house and I found this speaker. So it's literally been sitting in a corner somewhere, not being used. And I'm
Okay.
like, oh, I should probably use, because it's kind of expensive. I'm not, it was a couple $100. I'm not going to lie. And so I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, I should probably use this. I should do something with this. I hit the on button. It turned on. After 2 years of not being charged, it turned on. I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, cool. This is some quality stuff. So I'm like, I'll bring this to my office. Brought it to my office last week. And, I talked to a couple of people about it. I was like, hey, I found this thing and I've been wanting to experiment with it. What do you think? And they're like, yeah, cool. So I turned it on, we're listening to it, and it's not bad. It's not, it's not the annoying stuff. There's a couple of songs where we both had to say, do you hear that high pitched, tone? I'm like, well, I hear that all the time, but yeah, I'm hearing it in the music too. So we had to change a couple of things. But one of the things I did was I took this speaker. It's about I don't know, it's about the size of a Rubik's cube,
Yeah.
and I set it on like their sacrum, and then I set it on like next to them so they could feel the vibration. I mean, I only did this with a couple, two, three people, and I didn't get bad feedback from them. They said, yeah, it's fine. Like, I said, I'm not going to do this every time. This is an experiment. I'm
Right, right.
not incorporating this into what I do, but I just want to see what this thing does. And so, I don't know that the universal frequencies of the universe, um, cured their low back pain, but yeah, it was different, variety to the session.
The cool thing is for people that have been established for a long time and you're seeing the same kind of clients all the time, they'll be open to us being like, "Hey, can I try this today?" But what I've found is that, people don't like too much change, with you or me or again, those people that you've been seeing for years and years and years. And I've always found, and again, kind of off topic, like anytime I try to introduce something new to my practice, people are just like, "Hey, that's cool, Nate, but can you just like keep doing like what you're doing?" you know? And it wouldn't matter if I came and I said, "Hey, this is gonna cure you." They don't it wouldn't matter to them. It would not matter at all.
Yeah.
And
It's
that's okay too, right?
I mean, people like what they like, and
For sure.
what if, I don't know, let's just say McDonald's completely revamped who they were. Like people would throw a fit. I mean, I don't go to McDonald's, but that's just one that made sense because it's
Yeah.
consistent.
There's an old, well, that, there's a meme going around like, when did McDonald's become like so depressing? And they show the McDonald's of the 80s with all the colorful building in the inside with all the crazy characters and statues. And now it's just like these sort of gray, like simple looking buildings. And so, anyway, but like you said, I can't do it. So,
Yeah,
Ben, is there a soundtrack though? So, we talked about music that we play in our rooms and the evolvement of that. But is there like a soundtrack? Do you have a soundtrack as a massage therapist, like in your life?
that's something I did not think about. That's
Me
a
neither. That's a hard
fantastic
one.
question. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have a soundtrack, and you kind of brought up your German customers, and I was in Germany in the mid '90s, and that was kind of the I don't know. I'm going to call it German industrial techno time. If you've ever seen the techno Viking, he kind of was born out of this era of the German techno industrial. And I went to this club one time and I saw it was all this techno going on, and these people were like really robotic dances, back and forth, and it was so cool, but I was really scared too, but it was the coolest thing I've seen. And I've kind of gotten into like one of my sort of secret likes is German techno.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it.
But I would not pick that as my soundtrack, but I'm kind of a closet fan of German techno.
Listen, we've all got our kind of like weird stuff that we throw on, and again, I attribute this to, for me personally, right? All these years of, in music school, I had to listen to so many different kinds of music, everything from Gregorian chant to, you get into the 70s when people got real weird, composers got weird, really weird, and they would put amplifiers and mics on cactuses and like pluck them and to get tonalities. But because I was so immersed in that, your ear starts to develop in a way where you're like, "Oh yeah, I can hear the music in that and the benefit of that." And sometimes I put some stuff on that Shauna just looks at me and she's like, "What are you listening to?" You know what I mean? Like stuff that nobody would ever love. But at the end of the day, out of all the weirdness that I listen to, I don't know. My number one go-to, it's is Dave Matthews Band for some reason.
Yeah,
And even people are like, you listen to a lot of Dave Matthews Band, and I just can't. I don't know what it is. They have a Dave Matthews Band channel on satellite radio, and it's just that's my constant.
that would be
So
your go-to soundtrack for a massage.
well, yeah, and just everything, right, all through life,
Yeah.
you know. But then like one day I wake up and I like hear a Japanese punk band, and this all-female Japanese punk band playing music at a million miles an hour and screaming in Japanese, and I'm like, oh my God, I love this. And I'm like listening to it for like the next few weeks.
Nice. I want to ask you about something sound related again. What about these sound therapy sessions where they do the singing bowls, where they have they they twirl the thing around the rim
Yeah.
and make the noise? Like, what are your thoughts on this? Because that's music. We're kind of talking about music and
People
therapy.
love it. People love it. I taught a workshop a couple years ago as part of a bigger event, an AMTA, like a regional thing. So they had all different types of classes going on, and sharing a classroom with me from 6:30 to 9:30 before I got started was a sound bowl class. And I always felt bad because like 10 minutes before their class was over, I had to kind of quietly come in and start, getting my stuff on. But again, the tonality of that stuff from my ears was just for me personally, it just was not soothing to me. I don't know, it just bothered my ears for some reason.
Yeah, I've never experienced it, but
It was tough to walk into for me.
yeah, and just because you don't particularly like it doesn't mean that there isn't
No,
benefit for it. And that's what I tell people
no.
all the time that
Yeah,
come in, like, yeah.
yeah, and they had a full class of people loving that stuff, and I know that's a pretty like well-known, popular thing to attend. So I imagine there's a benefit for it, but yeah, it was pretty tough for my ears.
And you mentioned this earlier, and I kind of want to touch on this a little bit, is music can transport you to different places. Like I can hear some 80s music and I can remember back where I was at in 1985, on my bike with the baseball cards strapped to the spokes making the noise. Like there's some music that just, it transports you.
Yeah, of course it does. Of course it does. And we've had a soundtrack our whole life. I mean, I remember being 5 years old and finding a Kiss album in my parents' basement and just seeing this colorful picture of these guys in like crazy makeup. And you'll never forget the first time I put that record on and heard I Want You, the first track. And I was like, every time I hear that song, it transports me back to being 5 years old. Or 8 years old when Van Halen's 1984 came out. And the first time I heard Running with the Devil cranking through my brother's stereo. And, that song, every time I hear it, right, I'm 8 years old again. And it's pretty cool, right? Pretty cool that music can have that sort of impact on you.
Yeah. And then now I'm going to get a little crazy, but do we want to be transporting our clients to a different time?
Sure.
Maybe we
I
transport
mean,
them to a different time when their back didn't hurt. And it could that be, I'm going a little crazy there. So we'll tone that back a little bit.
well, you're not wrong though. I mean, if people are recognizing songs, like even if you're playing no lyric compositions, music, but it's a guitar version of Enter Sandman or something like that, you might get that person on the table that, it's all of a sudden 1991 in their mind, hearing that song for the first time, right? And transporting back to a good moment in their youth. And, we can get deep because can those feel good, all those hormones that are happening make your low back pain go away? Sure, of course.
Boy, somehow we find a way to turn music, turn a little podcast into something deeper. Here we go again. I love it.
Pain science. Dun dun dun. Somewhere out there, one of those pain science guys is like, are
Yeah.
they talking about this?
And that's why everyone loves to listen to Ben and Nate's questions that we ask people on the internet.
That's right.
Oh man, we could talk about this all day, but let's maybe talk about some big takeaways. What's a big takeaway that you had from our discussion today?
I think just some big takeaways are, don't, as a massage therapist, new or established, don't get hung up on, any sort of standards of like what you thought you were told to play in your treatment room. Just remember your neurosurgeon is playing carcass, right? While they're operating on you. So don't necessarily be held back by any sort of belief system of what should be played in your treatment room. And if you do change your music, you never know, man. You might listen. A chiropractor said to me a long time ago, when people fall off your schedule, you never really know why, right? And it could be that they didn't like the color shirt that you wore that day. Maybe you forgot to put on deodorant that day. Maybe just something was a little off with you. Or maybe they just didn't like your music anymore. And as ridiculous as that sounds, you never know why somebody's going to stop coming to see you. And you certainly don't know why people are always coming to see you. I mean, we think we're magical and we think we're this, that, and the other thing. But hey, maybe it's a joke, maybe it's a not, or maybe it's not. But I would say over 50% of my clients laughingly say to me, I come here for the music. But I kind of think there's always facts with jokes, right?
Yeah.
So there you go. So those are my takeaways. How about you?
Well, man, I think just toward the end here, when we started talking about the possibility of where music can
Yeah.
take you to, I mean, so it gives me the idea. Maybe I need to experiment a little bit more with changing my music up. And I like my music, so I don't want to say that I want to listen to something that I like better, but maybe just changing it up. That's kind of one of my takeaways that I think is gonna happen.
And listen, if you're playing Pandora and the song about getting her in your room and locking her up and doing the things like, just be ready for the dump button on that, Ben.
Yeah, the
Be ready for
anti-cringe button to get that
yeah.
cringe music out of there. That's cringy. Oh,
All right, my
well,
friend. Well, another good Saturday morning spent with you, sir.
yeah, it's fantastic. So for those that are listening, Nate, that like the show, tell them how they can support what we're doing with the show.
You know what? Share it with your colleagues and tell your friends, but most importantly, just keep answering these questions. We've noticed an uptick with people answering questions lately, and I got excited about that. So just keep answering those questions because it helps to keep this show alive. It's not the thousands of dollars that Ben and I make every week from this show. It's truly your answers to these questions that keep him and I alive.
That's right. If it weren't for you guys, we would have no reason. Well, actually, we have lots of reasons to get together because we just like it.
I
But
like it.
if we
But
can
still,
if we can share some knowledge or just some entertainment, that's what we're looking for. And we're happy that you're listening. We're on episode 36-ish of Ben and Nate's Questions We Ask People on the Internet. Thank you for listening. We would love to see you back here in the future.
we sure would. Have a good day, everybody.